Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Big Decisions for Anfield Index. We should start by saying Happy New Year, isn't it? There's a lot to be happy for at this time. The Reds are top of every league, and yet all the discussions are about that dirty C word, aren't they? Which we'll get into. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Mo Salah's greatness. We'll talk about squad members like Endo and Chiesa. Will also talk about who is your favourite front three. And for the first part, 2025, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Hari Sethi. Everyone will know him from Rival Recon. And Hari, good Christmas, good New Year, fingers crossed.
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, the usual regret over certain food choices, things like that. But other than that, yeah, no, I think it's been a great period, and yeah, we'll come on to talk about the various things we could talk about when it comes to Liverpool Football Club, right? But let's face it, on the whole, pretty rosy time to be a Liverpool supporter wherever you're watching from.
Yeah, no doubts about it. There is a lot of noise. There's a lot of background chatter, if you want to call it that. But in terms of the
Yeah.
pure football, there has been so much to like, people. We've no
Mm.
doubts about it at all. However, we are it for you. And there's only one place to really start, as you know, Hari, the Trent situation, because we're all kind of enjoying, I suppose you'd call it a nice, relaxed New Year's Eve, nothing too much going on. And then all of a sudden, the Paul Joyce bomb drops, doesn't it? I think it was sort of
Mm.
mid-afternoon yesterday, saying that Liverpool have rebuffed, rejected, not even a bid, an inquiry from Real Madrid to take Trent Alexander-Arnold across to Madrid in January, a straight rejection. Obviously, as you know, Hari, and kind of understandably, social media has its reactions, people go into meltdown, various different types of things. I mean, when that breaks or when you hear it for the first time, what are your initial thoughts, Hari, being honest?
I think my initial thoughts were that wasn't the push notification I was hoping to receive from Paul Joyce. To be honest, I was of the opinion. I think last time we spoke that I couldn't really see any sense in the club allowing it to get to January when it came to these contract extensions. I thought that was really unwise, and maybe I was being naive about sort of the level of detail that needs to be poured over to actually get those contracts across the line. Or in other circumstances, whether or not the players actually have the intention to sign those extensions, for example, which might it could be the case here. But yeah, wasn't what I was hoping for. I was hoping for, and still am hoping for. I'll keep an eye out at 5 o'clock for a any update around Van Dijk, for example, which is the one we're led to believe is the furthest progressed. Because I thought it would be, what a note to end the year on. It's been a magnificent year for. An emotional year for Liverpool fans. Let's face it, with Klopp departing, with Slot coming in, but the path that we're on really exciting. And I thought, what better way after that defeat of West Ham in that fashion to announce something positive, either at the end of the year or right at the start of the next year, just to be like, everybody's on board here. We're keeping the momentum going. One of the big three is signed, and look at this. So yeah, my initial reaction was disappointment that it wasn't anything to do with that. And then you see, of course, the details of the post that Real Madrid have made this inquiry. I'll make it. It made no bones about my sort of dislike of Real Madrid as a club for many years
Yeah.
now. They're not the one I would gravitate towards in Spain, and that's before they caused all Liverpool fans so much heartache over the past few years. By zombieing their way to multiple Champions League sort of trophies. But yeah, you see it, and then the initial reaction, you're trying to quickly wrap your head around it. What could the possible angles be? Saw some people, focusing on the instant rebuff. I forget what the exact phrase was, wasn't it? Like something rebuffed, just to really emphasize how emphatic our no had been. Then you start to dwell on it for a little bit longer and think about the fact that Real Madrid have made this inquiry and the timing of when it's become public as well. I find it very difficult to believe that would have been made without some encouragement coming from the players' camp around this, or even just as a bit of a power move, to be honest. I mean, I think everyone knows Trent's on a free in the summer. So to do this now, Is it because they really do need a right back, so quickly, for example, that it's actually born out of necessity, or is it just a bit of one of those mind games that we know Madrid like to play, where they
Yeah.
just sort of show we're going to get this player, and just wanted to let you know nice and early, of our intentions here. And so I think, unfortunately, kind of bitter note to end 2024 on, which was not what I was hoping for, Dave.
Yeah, and I think that there'd been a bit of excitement because Liverpool had removed their pin tweet, hadn't they? So there was hopes that, like you said, it would be some sort of announcement coming through, but then it was this. And I'm exactly along the same lines of you, that I failed to believe completely that there's not some sort of encouragement that's driven Real to do this. They don't just do it off their own back. Yes, there will be tactics and they'll have their playbook, etc. But there has to be some encouragement from Trent's side. And funnily enough, in the last hour or so, that's what Mel Reddy's been talking about on Sky Sports News, fully believe that there is that encouragement at the same time. So, yeah, it's not really the best way to sort of gear into 2025. And people reacted. Michael Owen had something to say, as we know, Harry, and Jamie Carragher, who's never short of something to say on Liverpool contracts, he had something to say in regards to, and funnily enough, he can be a divisive figure, Carragher, as we know, but he tweeted about this, saying the club don't need it. And he also mentioned there's no way of doing this without, some sort of encouragement, and it probably is a precursor towards Trent heading to Real Madrid. I mean, he can be divisive, but what he's saying there, the club don't need it. He's spot on, really, with that bit, Carragher, isn't he?
Yeah, I remember he was having a discussion with Jamie Redknapp actually in the Sky Sports studio after after what game it was, and it provoked quite a lot of conversation just because of how forceful he was being and how forceful Redknapp was being in the other direction. Defending the player, saying he's got every right to do what he wants. You can choose, and I do want to emphasize that. Right? I mean, I think we all love Trent. There's so much romance about sort of his connection to the club, as it rightly should be. He's played off of that as much as the club have. It's a really wonderful story to see someone come through the academy like that, down the road from the stadium, and become the world-class talent that he has done, and being given the platform to do that by Liverpool. But I remember the conversation, and it tended to be a little bit around like what he owes the club. And look, these are professionals. You have your contract, you fulfill it, and you are allowed to make decisions. Like, for example, to want to go somewhere else and play for another team, expand your horizons, live in a different country. Let's face it, he's not considering going to a struggling side here. He's talking about being considered as a player for one of the greatest European clubs there is. So, if you step back from it a little bit and consider it from just a professional perspective, you can you can understand that. But I think where I agreed with Carragher was that you can't have your cake and eat it too, basically. So if that's your intention, that's fine. Okay, like I think if but rather than shy away from any media whatsoever, allow the vacuum to build, encourage bids from a club, for example, like this, like we're led to believe is happening. And Mel ready with that update. You come out and you own it, and you say, look, my focus completely frees up. Imagine if he'd come out and said, my focus is completely on the Premier League title, and it's completely upon winning the Champions League with Liverpool. That's how I want to go out, and I do plan to go out and plan to maybe see myself somewhere else. But that's all I really want to say on it right now. I am completely focused, completely committed. Again, there'll definitely be some people who would complain about that or question whether he could do that. But again, at least you're taking ownership of it. You're not trying to sort of form a narrative, PR your way around it, and then you've been up front. So and I think that the fact that he is doing it in this way, where he's running down the contract and leaving on a free, and going to a club, and when you leave on a free and you sign for a club, what are the reasons why you do that? Let's imagine it's any player in the world, not just Trent. You're doing it because you're going to get a bigger sign-on bonus yourself personally, and you're doing it because your agent or whoever is involved with you in terms of organizing that contract is down to sort of benefit from that financially. That doesn't mean you're a snake. It doesn't mean you're this or that. That's it's business, and some people operate that way. That's fine. You can't do that and then also retain this,
Yeah.
this charming figure of the local lad who loves the club. That's the issue here. That's the tension, really. If this was a player who was from Italy, for example, who played for Liverpool and he made this decision, or Spain, for example, much more easily understandable. You won't like it that he's done it this way. Other players have done it this way when they've joined us. But it's the fact that there's that tension between who he is, his image that he markets to the world as well, the club markets to the world, and this kind of behavior. And it's trying to spin two plates at the same time. And it's not really something that you can do. On this latest comment from Carrick about the club don't need it. Of course they don't need it. Yeah, this is a distraction. I spoke about momentum. That's what the club wants to maintain going into 2025. Hopefully they can do that on the other announcements. So yeah, it's not needed. I did notice that Carragher didn't use the word selfish on this occasion, as he did for one Mohamed Salah, but that's beside the point. It's not needed. I mean, we want the opposite announcement.
Yeah, interesting. It wasn't quite as consistent, shall we say, in the messaging, but I understood what he was saying, and I think you make a fair point. There's almost the silence is deafening. I think people would actually, we wouldn't like it. I'm not going to say that, but if Trent came out and just said, I'm going to give everything for the rest of the season. Long term, though, this is what I want to do. I'm not saying people would respect that. Maybe that's a bit too strong, but there would be some understanding. And also, are you worried this could derail a bit?
I mean, I think that's really hard to quantify, right? I think these are the things that are more difficult to judge, or actually be able to see what is the effect of something like this. And if these are human beings, there's a huge amount of emotion that goes into football and team sports as well as what we see in terms of the tactics. And I think you'd be naive to think that this is not going to cause some sort of issue when it comes to the dressing room dynamics, especially because let's imagine this is happening alongside the fact that there are two other contracts there that have yet to be completely signed off when it comes to Virgil van Dijk and when it comes to Mohamed Salah as well, right? So the fact that this is happening not in isolation, but within that context, it's probably hard to imagine that it's not going to affect the dressing room in some sort of shape or form, really. So I think to assume it would be a little bit sort of optimistic. Having said that, I do think these are professionals, and I do think that they something like this can also spur you on, right, to actually give everything. And as a local, hometown boy, he's going to want to sign off in the best way possible. And what better way to sign off than this? And I mean, I'm thinking about similar, like not really quite the same, but you think of Declan Rice, for example, right? And I mean, it's very different for him because he left the club and got the club a fee for West Ham, but he also did so on the back of that first European trophy, right? So at least he can say, I delivered this, I've done that. But yeah, he also did deliver a massive fee as well. So that's the other issue here, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose the final bit on this, because we could go around all day, but there was this bit, I'm sure you've seen it. Chris Bascom and a few others have said it. Real Madrid are prepared to pay 20 million for Trent in January.
Oh, how generous.
Mean, you just can't, we can't envisage that, can we? That if he's not going to stay long term, it's just about success till the end of the season, isn't it? Surely.
Yeah, no, I think even if you play it out, I mean, selling someone like Trent, how are you going to replace someone like Trent? How are you going to begin to sort of address that position of right back? I think it becomes very difficult to negotiate. So I think the only possibility I see here really is that he's allowed to leave the club he's not allowed. He leaves the club in the summer at the end of his contract. Perhaps there is the signing of a pre-agreement in January or something like that, which he's now able to do because the club haven't sorted it out before January. Perhaps that does happen, but no, I cannot foresee him leaving this club in January, even if it's for the generous offer of 20 million or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, also in football terms, let's be honest, 20 million is absolutely nothing, unfortunately, in the top level market, is it? Absolutely not a bean. It won't
Yeah.
make a dent in anything.
No, and I have to say as well. I mean, I think that is another point that I think fans are right to be like annoyed about this in terms of I hear the argument about, I think it was the Redknapp argument. Look what he's given to the club. Look at his talents. He's a wonderful player. He's giving all this to Liverpool. And you go, well, actually, with respect, let's be honest here. Liverpool and the platform that the Liverpool have provided him is the reason he is where he is. He's been lucky to play under some of the best managers in the world, with the best coaching staff in Europe at times. And alongside some of the best players, in Europe, some of the best players ever. So, I think it's a little bit generous to be taking the players out on that. The club has given him a huge platform here to build himself into the world star that he is now, and by deciding to run the contract down for his own benefit, perhaps, and for sort of how lucrative it might be, as I said at the start, that's fine to do that, but you should accept that you're going to get some criticism. The fact that because you're going to leave a club potentially, 100 million plus talent if in world football, and your return to the club is nothing.
Nothing.
I think it's quite sour when you think of it that way. And also, whilst it doesn't really come into it, it's quite clear. I mean, the club have obviously helped his family out quite a bit over the years as well.
Doubt.
And so that's only going to help. That's only going to help to sort of make it even bitter for some people.
Yeah. And to be fair, I can understand it from both sides. And I do understand that, like, say, the asset walking out for free. It's quite clear that the club have helped his family, in many ways. So, yeah, I don't think it will ever be fully resolved, shall we say, unless by some miracle he does sign a renewal. But I think we're all maybe just dreaming a bit of that hope rather than expectation. We will see what happens, So the other person, one of the other two who's also got a contract running down, is Mo Salah. And we can talk a bit happier about Mo Salah, Harry, because naturally he wants to stay. He's talking about, his legacy. And the only sad thing recently with Mo Salah, there was that small comment afterwards, wasn't it, after the West Ham game, where he was asked about his contract, almost jokingly, and he said, no, we're no further along with that, but I don't want to make a story or anything like that. I'm just focused on winning the Premier League, which there's the sadness to that statement, but the happiness at the same time. I mean, just look at these stats that Mo Salah is putting up. And up to Joe, shout out to them, because maybe a shout out to Mo Salah for making their career a little bit at the moment as well, because like you said, 39 there, Premier League goals that he's had a hand in, beating in 2018 his own record, which is just insane, but we come to expect this. And then even in 2024, as they've put 16 goals he's assisted, only beaten by Trent, funnily enough, in 2019. And I know you'll have probably seen this as well, Harry, the Michael Reed tweet about how he's doing compared to all others. Mo Salah is in the race for the Balon d'Or right now, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I think on current form, and if we think about what the Ballon d'Or is usually about, right? It's usually about you've won something, you've had a hand in winning something, and sometimes you can be statistically worse than others, and you'll still win a Ballon d'Or as long as you've what you ultimately won something as a trophy at the end of the day. So if Salah continues this form and it leads to Premier League title, I think more important for Ballon d'Or tends to be at times the winning of the Champions League as well, right? So let's say he's able to do that or go very far in that competition whilst also helping to win the Premier League. I think he's right up there. I honestly do. I think it's very, very difficult now for any of his critics or those who just were unwilling to really give him the credit I think he's obviously deserved. It's very, very difficult now to make arguments against him, given the performance level that he's putting in. I think it still is being taken for granted at times, actually, the level of performance he's putting in by not only Liverpool fans, but those around the league. And you're starting to hear arguments about, okay, well, maybe this player is culturally degrade a player, because the stats are falling, right? And again, that's fine. You can have those arguments. Sports is always about those arguments. Every sport, you can have those kind of debates about. It doesn't matter. Jordan's records were taken. It doesn't matter. This guy's still culturally relevant to the sport, whatever it might be. But no, the performance levels incredible. Breaking his own records is hilarious. So when you run out of records to break, create your own ones to break. And it's something we know. We know that this drives the player. We know that he has this personal motivation to be the best, to get these personal accolades. The team accolade is what he wants. He's been very clear about that. But he wants and he craves these accolades, and he deserves these accolades. So I would love to see it. I would love to see him become the third-time PFA Player of the Year. I think if he keeps it up for 1 month more, I think it's by the time the votes have to go in, it's only a couple of months, right. He will win that. Despite, and I saw some takes obviously around the likes of Cole Palmer, favorite player 2024. It wasn't even close. That's fine. Everyone can like different players, but I think the performance level is wild. And I think it's very important, of course, that we get this player to sign a contract with the club, even if it is the rumored 2-year extension. I think that's fair enough, and I think getting that done, getting Van Dijk done, it would send a huge message, wouldn't it, to everybody about these two stalwarts of the league, these icons of the league, going nowhere anytime soon, and you're going to have to deal with them for a bit longer. So I would love to see that. But any records that are left, I'm sure he has them in his sights, and they may well tumble this season.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And I think you made a fair point about, the big trophies. That usually comes into it. I'm sure Vinicius Jr. will be claiming that against Rodri as well. But if you look at this summer, especially for what's coming up, or maybe what's not coming up, there is no World Cup, there is no Euros, there's no Copa, there's no AFCON. That's moved to the winter from there as well. Do you feel if he is to win sort of the Balon d'Or, a lot of focus, naturally the Premier League will come into it, but how we do in the Champions League will play a part in that as well?
I think it does. I think it's in some elements it's a popularity contest. I know there was a lot of debate, obviously, around Rodri and Vinicius and what happened with that ultimate vote. So much so that it seemed as though there was an award show just created to reward Vinicius in Saudi Arabia not long ago, and reward Ronaldo, which is I think we can admit a little bit you bite your cheek, etc. But I think you have to be visible, and the Premier League is very visible, and doing what he's doing in the Premier League for a club like Liverpool, it doesn't get more visible than that. Doing it in the Champions League as well, in these high-profile games, Liverpool beating Real Madrid, the ties that could be coming up in the future, gives him the chance to really do that. And so I think he's got every chance at the moment. I can't remember the last African player to actually win the Balon d'Or, but it would be a huge achievement for him, a huge achievement for Egyptian football as well, that somebody has come and achieved that level of footballing performance. So I think he's got every chance for it. He's a very visible figure. He doesn't mind speaking after games as well, and if he keeps his performance level up, because he's allowed to, he's not going to be able to have to focus on anything else like AFCON, anything like that. And we know he keeps himself in good condition. I fingers crossed, touch wood. I don't see anything that's there to stop him at the moment, really. So that's the frightening thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is frightening. And Red Armchair supporters put there, George Weah. That might well be the last one, thinking how far back that is. Absolute decade. So what an achievement it would be. And as much as we're talking him in world terms, there's a lot of conversations at the moment as well, Harry, that where does Mo Salah sit in the all-time pantheon of Liverpool greats? And people will have different takes for those that have seen or grown up on Gerrard, for those that have seen those seasons that Luis Suarez has produced. Even we know the greats like the King going back, etc. If he does drive us to the biggest prizes, if we do win a second title, a seventh Champions League, massive things,
Mm.
Does that elevate him for you in the all-time LFC rankings?
Yeah, I think there's no question about that, right? I think if you can be a great player at the club and achieve, be putting great performances, or be an eye-catching player, things like that, score goals. But ultimately, it's about what you help the club to achieve. And at times, of course, it's not always about achievement. It's about helping the club through difficult periods. And I think,
True.
Gerrard, not only did he achieve things, but so often he was left to carry too much. And that was part of the admiration with him, as well as the fact of topical discussion with Gerrard that he stayed, and decided not to go to Chelsea or Real Madrid when he had the option. And we know that those clubs went after him. We know Mourinho tried many times, and so it becomes part of your legacy and part of how you're viewed as a great as well, which may be where, sort of, depending on what happens with Trent, impact where he ends up in that kind of pantheon. But Salah, no, I think, well, first of all, it's going to be unavoidable. Every time you pull up a list, it's going to be there towards the top of these lists. And who's that? And you have to explain to somebody who that was after his time has come and gone. But no, winning things, winning, driving the club to a Premier League trophy, doing so the season after the departure of an iconic manager, doing so in front of a packed Anfield for the first time.
Yeah.
And over 30 years, we were denied that. Doing the parade, doing Champions League, scoring a goal in, let's say he scores a goal in another Champions League final to help Liverpool win. It's back to back, or not back to back, but it's finals that he's been in when he's contributed to help us win the trophy. So I think, if he does that, then he's already solidified in the pantheon, but he adds a bit more gold to the statue, shall we say?
Yeah, it does feel like that. You're right. He's going to be in the wider conversation, whatever. People will have their different thoughts, but it does feel this season could be the one that maybe, not for everyone, but maybe for some, just defines how high up he is on that list. We shall see. Let's hope he's got every chance of going as high as possible. We'll see what develops. And from one, this sounds almost harsh, but a right winger who's maybe not having quite the same impact at the moment is Federico Chiesa, an interesting candidate. And there's been a few reports, Harry, I'm sure you've seen it. There's a few sort of suggestions that maybe Mr. and Mrs. Chiesa aren't enjoying the Merseyside climate, shall we say, as much, not maybe enjoying the culture, that he's not had many minutes, as we know. There's been various reasons for that, be it illness, fitness, various things. It came up on Media Matters, as Lewis Steele from the Daily Mail said there, though, that January could be his chance to shine, and with rotation, it could be a possible option. Do you think Chiesa can still have an impact of sorts this season?
I think it's certainly possible, right? I think if we believe at face value, the stories about the fact that the reason why he hasn't been in the squad has been about sort of really preparing a player who has had very little football for a long time, with the requisite level of fitness to play not only in the Premier League but for a team that has high intensity approach. Then if you buy into that, then you think, okay, it's just been about really building. It's taken a bit longer than we would have hoped, and we haven't been in the position where we've had to rush. Let's face it, we've had the luxury of the players in those forward positions playing at a really, really high level, so we haven't had to rush. And if you view it in that context, you go, oh, okay, the club's taking its time, and there is a plan to integrate him more from this month onwards. Hopefully, that'll be the case. In the little glimpses we have seen, there's still talent there. I think he can still be a really effective player. Unfortunately, the positions that he plays in, there doesn't tend to be much room or the guy doesn't really tend to vacate that position too much, which is a bit of an issue. But I think ultimately that we will have to rotate more. We will have to think about giving some of these players an opportunity to rest. Even those with incredible fitness records, I think like Salah, like Van Dijk, we have to be thinking about, can we find room for them to have a rest? And it could be that Chiesa gets the cups. You could get the both remaining Champions League group games, for example. Nothing to play for there. Why not give him a chance to get into those games and improve the fitness more? And that's kind of the catch, isn't it, as well? In that you can improve your fitness to a certain level, but without the game time, you're just never going to get to that level that's needed to be deemed an option where you can actually come in and contribute. So I think he does need those games. Hopefully, there's a plan in the club for that kind of runway where a couple cup games, a couple Champions League games, and then he's kind of ready to go in terms of, okay, now becomes a rotation option for the Premier League. So I think there's opportunity for him. I hope he is fit. I hope there's not as much in kind of the kind of lazier narratives around maybe him being like not liking it on Merseyside or whatever, or his wife not liking it. It's possible. Italy's a nice place. I'm sure there's a difference in lifestyle for sure, but I'd hope, given the disruption to his career, that he's not thinking like that. He's thinking he still wants his opportunity. He's got an incredible platform here. The team's best in Europe at the moment. You want to be involved. You want to be involved as a player. So I'm hoping that's it's the former.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And as you mentioned with the Cups, out of the 8 games that we've got in January for our Cup base, so there might be some great opportunities. And with the greatest of respect, teams like Accrington Stanley, that might be a great one for his fitness, obviously, there to get back into, as you mentioned, the Champions League games. And hopefully, even if it is just as a rotational option, shall we say, cover, if you want to call it that, for Mo Salah, he can still have real use. There are still big games and still have a chance for him of getting a big title medal or others in his collection. So fingers crossed we do hear less of that. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be good if January almost passed for Chiesa and he has those games and he just focuses on it. But we'll have to see.
Super easy story, isn't it? Super easy story to write this month. I'm not surprised it's come out already. So it's it's the kind of story you expect.
Yeah, no doubts about it. And it's that time of year, isn't it, people? And the other sort of squad player that, if anyone's had a bit of question marks around his sort of role, is Wataru Endo. I mean, there was a link the other day, wasn't there, Harry, with Fulham, that they're interested in him. And it's interesting. I've just put this quote up on screen just in case people can't see it. It goes, "This season, I will do whatever is necessary for the team to win all the titles. It may be the same thing every time, but I feel that this is the optimal solution that is required of me right now." I mean, it's quite clear that Arne Slot doesn't completely fancy Wataru Endo. I think that's fair to say. But with the games we've got coming up, the tournaments, everything that can unfold, and a few injuries at the moment as well, he can be an important part of the squad overall, can't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we saw last season what he's able to produce, as well as his limitations as a player. I mean, at this stage in his career, I think. I mean, in my opinion, I think he has been harshly used by the manager. To be honest, I think there's been enough occasions where we've been ahead quite comfortably in games where he could have been afforded 25 minutes here, 30 minutes there, whatever, and could easily have done an adequate job to maintain control in that game, and help us get over the line, build some fitness, a bit more encouragement. And I think the manager's clearly been reluctant to do that. I think last time I spoke, I'd kind of said that if he was going to continue to get no option, or no playing time here, I do just move on, or allow the player to move on. I mean, it's not really fair on the player. I think he's a consummate professional by everything we've heard, right? I think you can see that by the way in which he approaches the limited games he's given. I think we played at centre back against Southampton. Weird role for him to do that in a weird environment, having not played for ages. Was a funny way to play the role as well at times, but threw himself into it, and you have to admire that. And I think recent cameos as well. I thought he was good against West Ham when he came on as well, and that's how I'd like to see him used. I'd also like to see us 4-0 up in most games as well by 60 minutes. But I think that he should be afforded a little bit more of those kind of cameos. Yeah, he's an experienced professional. We know his limitations, but I I think 30-minute blasts of energy from him with the intelligence he can provide, alongside, let's face it, alongside the likes of Szoboszlai, Jones, McAllister in that midfield, because it's mainly, I imagine he's going to mainly be rotated with Gravenberch. And we have to say it, we can't say it enough. This is completely uncharted territory for Gravenberch in terms of the number of minutes being played here.
Yeah.
He could react in any number of ways to that. And we just need to, why take the risk? If you've got someone there to rotate, just to take the minutes off of him, who can do the job for 20, 30 minutes, I'd like to see it done. Yeah, I don't think a sale would be wise here, unless we've got somebody in mind that we think is going to come in. We're confident of that deal, and then they could just slot straight into one of the most successful midfields in Europe. If they're out there, great. But if not, I think I'd be keeping him, but using him more.
Yeah, no doubts. Like you say, is that Gravenberch rotation, and he's definitely not going out unless someone who's going to, as you say, have a real impact comes in. And the other thing I was thinking for Endo at the moment, and obviously we don't know how close, how far away Canate is, but with Joe Gomez, and literally Slot suggested that seemed quite bad. They've not got high hopes from that one. In fact, there's only Kwanzaa and Van Dijk that are the fit centre-backs at the club right this minute. Endo is probably the next one to fill in there, isn't he, in all honesty?
Yeah, I don't like to think about that. But yeah, I think it's in theory, that's correct, right? So I think you wouldn't want to have to rely upon that, certainly for Premier League games or Champions League games. I've no doubt he'd give everything. And we've seen when you're playing next to Van Dijk, you can look pretty good, even if you aren't necessarily the strongest in that position. But I'm hopeful that Ibu has been in the whatever time chamber and recovering, and is ready to come back pretty soon. I've been enjoying the Instagram posts in the gym. It looks like he's not far away, and I'm just enjoying the kind of further nail that will provide to certain of some of our rivals who are watching, thinking, okay, there's a little bit of weakness there, and then, oh no, this guy's come back. The one who was a wall basically for months and months. So I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, Ibu's ready to come back and can just slot right in. Otherwise, Kwanzaa in that position, I think he has limits again as a player, but I think he is capable of playing in a system alongside Van Dijk, and was still able to perform at a high level. So hoping he has the opportunity to have those kind of confidence building cameos as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We don't want to see Endo at centre back, but as cover as a rotational option for, like you said, for Gravenberch, like it panned out against West Ham, more than useful. And with cup competitions coming in or coming up, he can still have a real impact if he comes in. And we're talking about the midfield. We talked about defence. The final thing on big decisions this week, Harry, the front three. This has become a bit of a hot topic, hasn't it? The front three, who's leading that forward line? Because as we saw, West Ham, it's Salah. It's always going to be Salah and two others. We know that. But it was Diaz in the middle, Cody Gakpo on the left. And in terms of pure stats, in terms of goals and assists, those are the three that are outstripping everyone else. I think Jota's injury record's got a bit to say about that. But just in terms of pure stats, for you right now, who is your first choice front three?
Right now, it is Salah, whose name is kind of chiseled there, as you mentioned. And then I think at the moment, given the form that we've seen, and given how we can see the development of the relationships between them, and actually also, so Diaz will be in there for me because of his ability to play that centre forward kind of role, in a more kind of hybrid role, and do it effectively, and slightly tweak it for different opposition. I think we've seen that in recent weeks and how he's been really effective in that. Yeah. I think just given what he gives to you in terms of the work rate there, the intelligent movement, and now also providing more of that decisiveness in terms of the goals and the assists, which was all we ever wanted from him as well. I think he's in there. And I think Gakpo has really worked very, very hard to put himself in the position where we would look at him as a a starting option. I know people have doubts, but that left-hand role, he looks so much more comfortable there. He's using his physicality more, his pace. He's looking pacier because I think he's trusting himself a little bit more in those roles. Fantastic shooting technique as well. We know he can strike a ball really, really cleanly. And the goals are giving him confidence. You can see the goals.
Yeah.
And also this, like, he's clearly working, isn't he, with Mo on trying to repay Mo with that back post kind of delivery that we've seen a number of times now. So I'm excited about that partnership. And I think Gakpo, clearly a very intelligent player tactically as well. And I think, speaking the native tongue of the manager, has got to help when it comes to sort of quickly understanding instructions and going out there and putting them in. So I think, at the moment, Gakpo, Diaz and Salah, having Jota as an option is an amazing option. I think, given the qualities he possesses. And I think we've seen from Slot, right, horses for courses. There will be different games where maybe different forwards are better for them. I still think if there's a game where we think there's going to be loads and loads of space, Darwin, you throw Darwin in there just because even without the end product, which we're all hoping he has a run before the season ends, sort of a little flurry of goals. He thrives in those environments because of his natural ability, right? So quick, so direct, and so even if he's not scoring in those kind of games where there's loads of space, it's really difficult to deal with. The defenders have to think about him. They can't just leave him on his own completely. So I think there's still games for Darwin to come in as well, but I think at the moment he's found himself outside of that first choice front three, and it's because of the levels of Diaz and Gakpo, and also the relationships. I think you can see them growing with every game.
Yeah, and to be fair, the top three, I mean, as we said, it's always going to be Salah and two others. The Diaz and Gakpo to be on 15 goal contributions already this season is quite impressive. Obviously, you add those two up together, you still don't quite get a Mo Salah, but you get very close to it. I suppose, Jota, do you feel that, is it ultimately injuries that have probably pushed him down the pecking order? I know it's almost a hard hypothetical. Do you think if he was fit, Harry, I know people will be scoffing as I ask you that question, but if he was fit, do you think Jota would be entrenched in there?
But it's a maybe, I guess. I think in terms of if he'd been fit or maintained his fitness from the start of the season when he was first choice, I think you could see Slot liked him in that role. Maybe he starts to understand more and more kind of what the manager wants from a player in that role. I know his goal scoring numbers and kind of how efficient he's been this season aren't actually what you think in terms of he's actually been a little bit more wasteful this season than he usually is when he gets those big opportunities. But you still back him, don't you? You still always think that if you need a shark in those kind of dangerous, difficult games where you're trying to get over the line, he'll find a way to scuff a ball into the net, which is what you need. I take 25 scuffs into the net from Darwin. I don't care about how cleanly you hit the ball, right? So I think he still has that reputation. I still think he's going to be really useful across this period because form does fluctuate. You could see that the likes of Gakpo or Diaz fall out of that form and different things coming into contention for them, and maybe they need taken out of action for a little bit. And then Jota's a great person to put into that role. And also, I can't remember exactly where they are in terms of fatigue numbers, but again, those boys in the front three, they're busy, and they're going to need to not start certain games as well, right? So I think there's plenty of games for Jota to come in, plenty of games for Nunes to come in, and hopefully get the goals that we know that they can score.
Yeah, no two ways about it. And as you say there, especially with January, we are expecting rotation. Yes, there is 8 games, but 4 of those are cup games. I suppose the only thing I wanted to ask you when we looked at January to sort of finish it off, Harry, is the league is the focus naturally, and there's a few tough away league games in there, no two ways about it. The Champions League feels a bit like a dead rubber because we're already essentially qualified. Accrington Stanley, again, with the greatest respect, that feels like a free hit, whatever Slot wants to do. That Carabao semi, it's literally just after we've played United, haven't we, in the league? How strong a lineup I suppose, are you expecting and maybe wanting for that game specifically?
Well, I think wanting and expecting might be different things. Actually, I think I would pretty much go with the same 11. Pretty much the same 11 as we saw against Southampton, where you're seeing those players around the periphery, in combination with a couple stalwarts. So I think it was Alexis played against Southampton, and maybe Jones, to come in for that game and contribute for that first leg. I think first leg it's away from home, isn't it? Yeah, so against Spurs. So, but again, I can see it both ways as a manager. I can see the logic in thinking, no, we go strong early, and in the away leg we blast them away. We've only just returned from dismantling them at home. I want to put a strong team out, and we'll get the result done in the first leg, and then I can rotate for the home leg. So there's different ways of thinking about it, and I think let's be honest here. Again, touch wood, fingers crossed about not being complacent and not having one of those frustrating draws at home to United that we've had in the past. But we are facing one of the poorest sides in the league in United at home, so we should be expecting to beat them quite comfortably. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting us to treat them like they are, like they're playing. And in that case, maybe the intensity is a bit lower. I mean, we can let's say, perfect scenario, you can take players off at 60 minutes like we did against West Ham for United, and then there's the chance of playing a bit of a stronger team. But I would be still erring on the side of rotating and having. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't want Van Dijk to be there. I wouldn't want Salah to be there. I want to see posts on Instagram about a nice sushi restaurant they're at or something, like just whatever it might be. I don't want to see them anywhere near that game. I don't want to see Grav near that game, to be honest. I think that there's certain players that we know are vital to what we're doing at the moment, and they shouldn't be put into the red zone. I mean, Cy Bronish would tell me, he'd tell us both, wouldn't he? I mean, he was still annoyed that Joe Gomez played that game against Southampton. Who knows how that contributed to his injury, right? But where we can see players are really like high in that red zone and they're key to us, I wouldn't be wasting them on this competition. I know, I get it, exciting. We're close to a final here, and given the opposition, given how they're playing, we're not far. So I can see what I said, Dave. He just goes really strong first leg and goes, I'm going to get it out of the way, and then I can rotate for that home leg. But yeah, we need to be cautious still, because nothing's been won yet.
No doubt. So similar to you, I would like to see a lot given the night off. And even with that, as you mentioned, like that Southampton game, you can still have the Chiesas, Jotas potentially, Nunes, Elliott's, and it's still a strong lineup Liverpool can field, but there should be no risk taken at all. And it does feel almost, we're sounding greedy now, and people will challenge us on this, and I get this, but of the 8 games in January, are you sort of starting to think that, like, for a league, the 4 others, I'm not saying they don't matter, but there's zero risk that should be taken in those?
Yeah, I think the manager will probably think a little bit differently when it comes to the domestic cup, right? In terms of, I think that just the attraction of getting that cup done early, the first trophy of the season. For a new manager, it's appealing. We are the holders, so I think there's probably a bit more attraction in him to be a little bit more risky in that game. Champions League, this year is nothing for us to play for here at all at the moment, other than money, I guess. There's more money if you win every game, but. So I think, I'd expect to see, given the level of detail we've seen from Slot since he's come into the club and what we've heard about him, I would imagine already there is a plan that's been drawn up about how we're going to divide this month into 2 and how we're going to give encouragement to those players who haven't had a lot of minutes. You mentioned Elliott there, Tsimikas coming back in from after the injury layoff, Bradley probably soon to return as well. Endo, Chiesa, etc. There's people there who you want to keep invested in this project and give them a chance to shine as well, just like we gave the kids a chance to shine, and they did, against Chelsea, right? So you can use that almost as the blueprint, right? Like, this is yours. I'm giving it to you. Like, you go out there and let's get even more glory for the club. So Yeah, I would imagine he's split them in half already, because the league is the all important.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all, people. We're thinking for January, you may split the fixtures in half with the league being the focus. One thing you won't be doing, though, is you will not be splitting that squad in half, and Trent Alexander-Arnold will be going nowhere in January. There's still important roles as well for the likes of Chiesa, Endo to play. The rest, well, all the focus is about number 20 and maybe the possibility of a big number 7, but we'll see. But there we are, ladies and gents. It is the start of the year. It's the 1st of January 2025. And there is a million and one things to talk about around Liverpool, isn't there, as we've just proven. So all it leaves me to say is ever, Hari, for the time, the insight, and for answering all the questions that were put to you, much appreciated, pal.
No, happy to do it. Yeah, first of the year.
Indeed. And fingers crossed, we'll be doing many more of these, hopefully with more of a happier tone on everything, but we'll see what develops. But there we are, ladies and gents. For the first time in 2025, that was another Big Decisions for Anfield Index.